I've copied UiPath 8 and renamed this to UiPath 10 underscore Datatable Part 3 loops. The idea of this video is to show how to loop through a data table. I have the Excel input file we've been using here open, and we see the data in this file is lined up in rows and columns. In this video, we're going to focus on the rows of data. I might also call a row of data a record. So if I say record, I'm just referring to a row of data. We see the first row is a header record, and the second row and below are the data records. I'm going back to the UiPath window. We're not going to use the two log employee activities in this video, so I'm going to select them both and delete them. I will also go into the variables down in the data manager and delete the string employees. We won't need this one either. To loop through a data table, I'm going up to the activities, and I'm going to use an activity called for each row in data table. I will double click that and add it to our sequence. The data table we're going to use is the only one we have here, DT employees. And for each record in that data table, we will perform the activities in the body section of this activity. I will add a log message to the body of the for each row in data table. And what I want to do here is just log out the first name and last name of every employee in the data table. To do that, I'm going to open up the expression editor here, and I will type in current row, left paren, double quote, last name, double quote, right paren, to string. That will print out the last name. I'll add a plus sign, a double quote, comma, space, double quote, then another plus sign, and then a current row, left paren, and I'm going to give the number 1, right paren, dot, to string. And here we see for the column 0 or last name, I'm using the column name, last name, and for the first name, or column 1, I'm using the column number 1 instead of the column name. Normally I would use all column names or all column numbers, but here I'm reminding us that we can mix and match the column names and column numbers, depending on our needs for the workflow. I'll click Save, and I'll add a log level of info. I'll also change the log message to say log name. And the for each row in data table, we're going to change that display name to be log each row in DT employees. I'm going back to the input file here for a moment. So the for each row in data table will go through each row in the data table one at a time and perform the actions in the body. Here we only have one activity, but we could have many more. Once it's completed the last activity in this body, it will go to the next record in the data table and start again doing all the activities in the body for that next record, and all the way through until we've done it for each record in the data table. So it'll start with this first record and the last name Taylor, then we'll have a comma, space, first name, which is Mark, second record, Williams, comma, space, Michael, and all the way through the entire data table. Now in this case, it will not print out this header last name and first name at the top because it knows the first record has header information. And how it knows this has header information, I'm going to close the input file and click on the Read Employee Excel file. And looking in the properties, we see Add Headers is checked. If we did not have headers, we would not check this box, and we would only have the column number to identify which column to use. Another thing I want to note here is the item name, current row. We can change that if we'd like. We'll make this current employee. And when I change this, notice it updated that item name everywhere it's used. Just like when we update a variable in this data manager, it will update that variable everywhere it's found in this process. I'm going to run this workflow. And it's complete. Scrolling up a little bit here, we see it worked. It printed out last name, comma, first name for every record in the data table. And notice it did not print out the column headers. In the last video, we wanted to show only the IT department. We can do that here as well. I'm going to click in the activities. I want to add an if activity. I'm going to put it right here in the body. And then our log name will go in the then. So when the condition is met, we'll log out the name. If the condition is not met, we will not log out anything. And the condition we want to meet is if the current employee department dot toString is equal to IT. And then running this shows we only log out the names of the employees in the IT department. This is the most common way to loop through a data table. We do have another way to loop through a data table, and that is with the while activity. Now, before we go on, I'm going to minimize and comment out or disable the for each row in data table by holding down Control and pressing D to disable it or comment it out. And I'll update this comment out to be comment out for each in DT employees. And now I want to add the while and the do while so we can see what they look like. And the while and the do while do work similarly to the for each row in data table, meaning they will perform the activities in the body while the condition is true. The for each row in data table condition was, are there more rows in the data table? If yes, loop through it again. Once all the rows have been processed, the condition is no longer true and it stops looping. The while activities work the same way. It will continue looping through the body while the condition is true. The big difference between the while and the do while is that the while checks the condition before it performs the activities in the body. If that condition is never met, the activities in the body will never be performed. The do while, on the other hand, checks to see if the condition is true at the bottom of the loop, meaning the activities in the body will always be performed at least one time, even if that condition was never true. For this workflow, I'm going to use a while, so I will delete out the do while. I'm going to add a variable for this condition, so I will add in the variable name int loop ctr for loop counter. I'll make this an integer 32 and give it a default value of 0. So we'll be starting with 0 for our loop counter. Now I'll add the condition to jump out of this loop. So we want to perform what's in the body while int loop counter is less than DT employees dot row count, and the row count is just the number of rows in that data table. So while our variable is less than the number of rows in the data table, perform the body. And the first thing I'm going to do is increment our loop counter. We want our loop counter to be equal to int loop counter plus 1. So I'm adding 1 to our loop counter every time we go through the body. This will be the last activity in the body, and we'll call this increment loop counter. I'm going to add in a log message, and just to make sure everything's working okay, I'm going to add the row plus int loop counter dot toString. We'll make this an info, and we will change this to log row. I'm going to run this just to check it, make sure everything's working okay. Okay, we see it completed. We have rows 0 through 29, which is exactly what we want to see. Everything's looking good. I will note, if you see everything 0 here and it's continuing on and on, it's because you forgot to update the loop counter. Just click the stop and stop it, and then add in an increment, and you should be fine. Let's add the first name and last name to the message log. I'm going to click on Open an Expression Editor. I'll start with a plus space so that we can keep the loop counter number showing. And then we're going to add in DT employees dot rows. And then the row we want is the one with the int loop CTR. And then from that row, we want to select the item last name. Then we're going to add the double quote, comma, space, double quote, plus. And to add the first name, I'm just going to copy this whole section here and paste it. And instead of the last name, I can change that to first name or make this a 1 like we did earlier. Oh, we also need the toString dot toString, and let's also add that here, dot toString. I will save this and run it. And there we see we're printing out all the employees. If I want to add in that if to show just the employees in the IT department, the condition will be if DT employees dot rows int loop CTR dot item 10 dot toString equals IT. And item 10 was the department that we saw in an earlier video. Running this should just log out the employees in the IT department. And there we have it. So in this video, we learned 2 different ways to loop through a data table. We'll see how to add the headers to our employee data in the next video for UiPath.